3 years had passed since the first revelation. Islam was quietly spreading, one soul at a time. The Prophet Muhammad had shared the message in secret, nurturing the faith among a small group of believers, but now a new verse came down. And warn your closest kin. It was the command that changed everything. The stage of private dawah was over. The message of Tawheed, of one God, was now to be declared openly, starting with the Prophet's own tribe, Banu Hashim. The Prophet ﷺ prepared a feast and invited his relatives, over 40 men, including uncles like Abū Ṭālib, Hamza, and Abu Lahab. As they ate, he rose and began, O children of Abdul-Muttalib, I do not know of anyone among the Arabs who has brought to his people a message better than what I bring to you. I bring to you something that will benefit you in this life and the next. He called them to abandon idol worship and believe in Allah alone. He warned of a day of judgment and eternal consequences. Then he asked, Who among you will support me in this noble task? Only one voice responded. Young Ali ibn Abi Talib is still a boy, but firm in faith. The room was silent. The majority hesitated, but the message had been delivered. The Prophet ﷺ has fulfilled his duty to his family, and now his message and voice would rise even higher from the very heart of Mecca. The time for secrecy was over. The dawah must now be proclaimed to the entire city. So he chose a method known to every Meccan, public announcement from Mount Ṣafā, the small hill near the Kaaba. It was the place from which urgent tribal calls were traditionally made. The Prophet climbed it one morning and called out to each sub-tribe of the Quraysh, O Banu Fihr, O Banu Adi, O Banu Ka'b ibn Lu'ay. His voice echoed through the alleys of Mecca, and the people came rushing together at the base of the hill. Curiosity stirred in every heart. What was Muhammad going to say? When they had assembled, he addressed them. If I told you that an army and an enemy was advancing behind this hill to attack you, would you believe me? They all replied without hesitation,
Yes, we believe you. We have never known you to lie.
Then he declared, Then know that I am a warner sent to you before a severe punishment. I call you to worship Allah alone and to leave the worship of idols. Save yourself from the fire. He turned to each clan and each relative by name, warning them of the day of judgment. Even to his own daughter Fatima he reminded, Save yourself from the fire, for I cannot do anything for you before Allah. It was a moment of clarity, of truth, cutting through centuries of traditions. But from the crowd a voice broke the silence. Abu Lahab, his uncle, shouted in anger, Is this why you gathered us here? May you be ruined the whole day. And he hurled dust in the Prophet's direction. From that moment the resistance began. Mockery would now mix with hatred, and truth would be met with ridicule. But the line had been crossed. The message of Islam was now public. The Prophet had risen with courage on Mount Ṣafā, and nothing in Mecca would ever be the same again. The tribal leader felt the ground shifting beneath them. Their wealth, honor, and influence were built on the very traditions Muhammad was calling into question. And so they convened in their ancient council house, Darul Nadwa, situated beside the Kaaba. It was the seat of power, where Quraysh made decisions of war, peace and politics. But today the agenda was different. The gathering including the most powerful men of Mecca, Abu Jahl, Amr ibn Hisham, the fierce chief of Banu Makhzum, whose hatred for the Prophet will become legendary. Utbah ibn Rabi'a of Banu Abd Shams, a respected elder known for his strategic thinking. Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, the wealthy leader of Banu Makhzum and the father of Khalid ibn al-Walid. Ubayyah ibn Khalaf, staunch opponent of change from Banu Jumah. Suhail ibn Amr, the eloquent speaker and a spokesperson of Banu Amr, a master of public persuasion. Abu Sufyan ibn Harb of Banu Abd Shams, a politically astute figure with significant economic influence. The tone in the council room was tense. They weren't just facing a preacher, they were facing a movement that could fracture their society. The Kaaba, with its idols, were a source of both spiritual and economic power. Pilgrims came from all over Arabia, and the Quraysh sat at the center of it. But now one of their own was declaring that all of this was false. Despite their efforts in Darul Nadwa, the message of Islam continued to spread. Quraysh had tried to discredit Muhammad with words, but the Quran struck deeper than poetry. It shook hearts, and it would not be silenced. The chiefs of Mecca grew nervous. Every passing day saw more people drawn to the Prophet, not just the weak, but also men of status. Quraysh feared losing control of the very fabric of their society. So they turned to a new tactic, persuasion through temptation. They chose one of their most significant elders, Utbah ibn Rabi'a, a seasoned statesman and a chief of Banu Abd Shams, known for his calm tone and persuasive speech. Utbah was a man Quraysh hoped could end the matter without conflict. They told him, "Speak to your nephew, offer him anything, wealth, women, leadership. Perhaps this is what he truly wants." Utbah agreed. He approached the Prophet one day near the Kaaba, where Muhammad ﷺ sat alone in contemplation. With courtesy and calm, he sat down beside him and began to speak. "O Muhammad," he said, "you have brought a grave issue to our people. You have divided families, criticized our way of life, and insulted our gods. But perhaps there is a way for this all to end." He continued, "If it is wealth you seek, we will collect our riches and make you the wealthiest among us. If you desire status, we will make you our leader. You will be obeyed in everything. If it is kinship, we will crown you king over Mecca. And if you desire women, we will give you the most beautiful women of Mecca, those of your choosing." Utbah paused, watching for a response, thinking the lure of power and pleasure might be what would sway him. When Utbah finished, the Prophet asked softly, "Have you finished, Abd al-Walid?" "Yes," Utbah replied. Then the Prophet began to recite, "Hamim, a revelation from the most merciful, the most compassionate, a book whose verses are detailed, an Arabic Quran for a people who know." He recited the verses of Surah Fussilat, unfolding the majesty and power of the Quran. The words spoke of divine truth, the arrogance of disbelievers, and the fate of past nations who rejected their messengers. Utbah listened intently. His face changed with every verse. The eloquence and power of the Quran began to move him. He was stunned by the divine beauty of the verse. As the recitation continued, the verses became more intense, recounting the consequences faced by those who rejected the truth. Finally, the Prophet recited the ayahs of sajda, the verses of prostration. Without thinking, Utbah fell to the ground in prostration beside the Prophet ﷺ. His heart was overwhelmed by the truth that had been revealed to him. The moment passed, and he stood up, pale and shaken, with no words left to offer. He returned to Darul Nadwa, and the Quraysh anxiously awaited his report. What happened? They asked, eager for the news. Utbah replied, his voice filled with awe. I have heard words the like of which I have never heard before. By Allah, they are not poetry, not magic, not madness. Leave this man alone. If others defeat him, you are spared. And if he triumphs, his victory is yours as well. The elders of Quraysh were stunned by his response, but their pride and fear prevented them from heeding his advice. The failure of Utbah's proposal left the leaders of Quraysh more anxious than ever. Their offer had been rejected, their warnings ignored. But the one obstacle still standing between them and open hostility was Abū Ṭālib. As the respected chief of Banu Hashim and the Prophet's uncle, Abū Ṭālib's protection was powerful. In a tribal society, attacking a man under the shield of his clan meant war, and Quraysh were not ready for that. But Muhammad had gone too far in their eyes. He was preaching publicly, he was gaining followers from every walk of life, and they were losing control. So the elder decided to confront the issue directly. They gathered their most influential voices, Abu Jahl, Abu Sufyan, al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, Utbah and others, and went to Abū Ṭālib with a final plea. They said, O Abū Ṭālib, your nephew has cursed our gods, mocked our traditions, and led our youth astray. He has brought conflict into our homes and division in our city. You must stop him or step aside and let us deal with him. Abū Ṭālib tried to calm the tension. Though he had not embraced the new religion himself, he loved Muhammad dearly and understood the purity of his cause. He politely dismissed the Quraysh, hoping the matter would pass. But it did not. A few days later they returned with an ultimatum. This time they came with a bold offer. They brought a young man, Umara ibn al-Walid, son of al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, strong, noble and well respected. They said, O Abū Ṭālib, take this boy, adopt him, let him be yours. In exchange give us Muhammad, we will deal with him as we wish. It was a cruel bargain. Trade his own nephew, the one he had raised, loved and protected, for another man's son. Abū Ṭālib was enraged. He replied, You gave me your son to feed and asked me to hand over mine so that you can kill him. By Allah, never. Still he felt the pressure mounting. The tribal elders were growing restless. The threats were becoming louder. So he called for his nephew, and he said, O son of my brother, your people have come to me with threats. Spare me and yourself. Do not burden me beyond what I can bear. The Prophet, calm and resolute, responded, O uncle, by Allah, if they place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left to make me abandon this matter, I would never leave it until Allah makes it victorious or I perish in the effort. Silence filled the room. Then Abū Ṭālib looked at him and said, Go, my nephew, say what you will. By Allah, I will never hand you over to them. From that day forward, Quraysh knew as long as Abū Ṭālib lived, Muhammad would not be touched. But they also knew something else. The limits of patience had been reached. The conflict would now escalate, and the streets of Mecca would soon turn hostile.